very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Ozama.
How's it going this showery morning? Welcome to your perfect morning start on Channels Television. It's good to be here. As always, I am Bukola Koka.
Wednesday, June the 10th, 2026. Good morning. Let's get things started, shall we?
What was the pause about, by the way?
I don't know. Perhaps wanted to soak the moment in Bukola. It's not every time, you know, you have a Wednesday hump day that is rainy and it's calm. Right?
Now, the weather this period is a bit confusing.
Oh, really?
At what moment it's raining? I mean, it looks like there's going to be sunshine, then it goes back. It just complicates things. So for certain persons, you may be feeling any kind of way. Maybe just check with your doctors or just find out how you
go to work.
But we have to be here. But
exercise. And then this curious feeling will disappear.
Yes. One of the very first things I wanted to address is, I always forget the name is called. They call it, is it expansion joint or something like that? Around Kara, if you're driving outbound Lagos. So I do not know who is still in charge of the Federal Ministry, Controller of Federal Ministry of Works, whether it's still Engineer Kisha.
No,
I'm not sure.
At all.
So whoever is in charge, Kara Bridge needs your attention, especially outbound Lagos. As soon as you want to climb the bridge, that thing, expansion joint, is no longer a joint. It's now literally pothole. So you know, it's a Lagos-Ibadan expressway. Means that we drive at very high velocity, 60, 70, 80, depending on how free the road is. So you can imagine bumping into that pothole on the expressway. So please, the Federal Ministry of Works, especially the controller in Lagos, please pay attention to that particular section of the bridge before we have incidents on our hand. So vehicles don't overspeed or speed and flip over that place. We just need to call your attention to that. Guys, I'm sure you've seen it as well.
It's no more an expansion joint. Now, expansion joints in engineering, basically expansion joints, they're put there to help the bridge when it expands and when it shrinks, depending on the weather condition. So you leave that little expansion joint for the vagaries of weather, right? At least I remember that from the little engineering we did before we moved on. But right now, it's no more an expansion joint. First off, the expansion joint is off because you usually have the metal, the iron and all of that and rubber mixed together. It is now a full-blown pothole. And that is a bridge. And there's the Ogo River just to your right and left, depending on how you look at it. So the government must ensure that that road doesn't turn to a death trap, because gradually it is becoming very dangerous. You understand that it's a highway. People are approaching on high speed and most times 180 or more. You don't want any eventuality there. It is waiting to happen. It is almost happening. Before we say God forbid, let us forbid it by fixing the road. So to the Ministry of Works and to the governments, the state governments that are responsible for that, you must ensure that you put pressure to fix that road. That is a disaster waiting to happen, and we must not let it happen. Enough is enough of just letting things dilapidate and look away until something bad happens, and we rush there and do press releases and interviews. Okay, we've put that out there, and we'll be counting down to see how the government responds. But just on a lighter note, guys, I was looking through, sports, because sports is in the air. The World Cup begins very soon, and I saw that a certain female team defeated another female team
30-0.
30-0. Comoros defeated Sudan 30-0. I was thinking, how? So the first 17-0.
In a football game?
The first,
no, I think it was first 17-0, and then the second 13-0. Yes, football, like the same football. Anyway, that's just off the cuff.
It wasn't basketball, because I'm more familiar with those high numbers, returns of goals and basketball games.
Yeah.
It was football.
It was football. Okay. Well, Comoros will be playing the Super Falcons next after the 30-0 defeat, or at least the B team. 30.
Trashing. That's more like trashing.
Exactly, of Sudan. So hopefully our Super Falcons can cage
double that number.
No. We're playing against a team that defeated another team
30-0.
So
okay.
I know that we have one of the very best teams, the best team in Africa. But hey, nothing is impossible. So go out today with that Comoros mindset to do great things. So that's off my chest. Back to you, Bukola.
This morning, Kadi and Jeffrey, I'm trying not to be angry, but I think it's long overdue that we had this conversation of lousy telephone service, telecommunication service, either it's calls, direct calls to lines, or it's, internet calls. The service is horrible. And, we've had this conversation before. We've asked the subscribers, representatives, to justify the, huge monies being made, the annual turnovers of this, service providers. And the answers have not been satisfactory. The regulatory service, the regulatory agency, rather, has tried to wield the big stick, issued warning notices to telephone subscribers, telecommunication subscribers to up their games, but we haven't quite seen any sanctions on the telecommunications service providers. I wonder if it's the same on your side of the divide. You may want to, follow us on X. Tweet your concerns and let us know if it's the same experience that you're having. How come, especially after the conversation had by one of the service providers over the weekend, trying to weigh in on the matter, that services have now degenerated to, purchasing credit and then the credit disappears entirely, or you purchase credit and you subscribe to a particular portion of data and then you do not get the service entirely. It's either you don't get the data or you don't even find the credit purchased. And sometimes you the loan service, by the way, is back because it had been suspended, by one of the regulatory agencies. And then you subscribe to a loan service, and then the credit purchase and the loan itself become a loan. That's been the experience in the last 24 hours. And for a country where you have 180+ million telephone users and 153 million internet users, in a country where the population of the youth is the highest and there is more potential for higher turnover for these telecommunication service providers, it is totally unacceptable. It's either that their service is broken, their machines are broken, or there's something really untoward that is happening. Why do they keep ripping Nigerians off and providing horrible services? We must, demand better service. We must get this conversation going online and offline and behind closed doors with the regulatory agencies to ensure that Nigerians get better return on their daily investment in internet subscription and telecommunication services. For crying out loud, Nigerians spend hours on the internet every day, and perhaps in Africa, it's the biggest market for telecommunications. So why do we keep having this, more to be desired kind of service from all the service subscribers? Sometimes it's inevitable that you have more than one line. You have other lines in case one disappoints you. And it appears as if it's happening across board for all the telecommunication service providers. This morning, we call them out and ask for better conditions of service.
I think it was MTN. So since it did it, we can put it
all the service providers.
No, MTN did what they call the MTN on trial.
Oh, yeah.
MTN data on trial. Yeah. And I think the CEO was giving some explanation because they had the prosecution, which were the users, this time represented by influencers, and then the defendants, which were the management team, different expertise within the management team responding to questions being asked, and then there was an audience, and the guy was hosting the section. I can't remember all of the things he said, but he talked about the quality of the things we now watch, trying to justify the fact that the things we now have access to is consuming data a lot. Although I don't totally agree with him, but that is his defense, perhaps it's an industry defense as well. I also know that he talked about the fact that if not for the allowance of hiking tariff or their prices, they may have been bankrupt because of vandalism, cost of doing business. What the hike was able to help them do the ones they can do right now. So the entire, so I totally agree with, I did load something in the router at home just 6 days ago. I don't want to say how many gigs I loaded. And yesterday night, we were struggling to use it, and now realize that what just happened? The number of gigs has disappeared. My wife was saying, there's something fishy here. Well, since I don't have the technical, whatever, to be able to analyze and know what happened, but I could tell what we used it for, and I know how it was prior to this time when we used it. When you do like in terabytes and all of that. So I don't know who to hold responsible, but the only persons to hold responsible, in my view, when it comes to quality of service, would have to be the regulators. Because these people are in business. We can come here and shout, and they come and defend themselves. It's the regulators beyond the talk. We should do better. But Nigerians things are just tough everywhere you look. So the least Nigerians can have is a bit of better service. Now they're telling everybody to go through to go and do fiber this, fiber that, fiber this. How many people can afford that? The ones that people can afford, please. You guys should, I know the business is difficult because now the cost of business, cost of capital, all of those things are super expensive because of the neoliberal policies of this government. When we keep telling them, they keep speaking English, but we're watching. But that's where we're at.
I was in the room during one of those sessions, and I did ask some of the questions on the minds of people, things about unlimited data, whether there is a transparent audit of what we use and what you see on the back end. Well, there was a promise that that audit will be made available, that will be conducted by a third party beyond the regulator or the service provider, and it will be made available to Nigerians to really see if what I use is what you are billing me for. And as has been said, lots of reasons have been given from, because you're now on 5G, you'll be consuming more data. So videos that you used to watch on maybe low quality would automatically switch to high quality or 4K, and naturally that consumes more data. To things like, people rely on their phones for everything now, unlike what you have in other climes where you only use your phone for things when you're out. Once you're home, you switch to your fiber and the rest. So lots of reasons were given. Whether or not these reasons are satisfactory is clear enough, because you still see people complaining, saying, I'm not being charged, or I'm not being billed for what I used. I think there's some hanky-panky here. So what I would ask for is more transparency, naturally. And it's good, I must say, to see the service provider MTN saying, okay, fine, let's have a conversation. Ask the questions, we'll provide the answers. I think that is one of the key steps to building trust. But trust is not built in a day. It's a consistent thing. So take all of these concerns and deal with them. I mean, I sometimes feel I deserve the kind of data depletion I get, right, because of all of the work that I do online. But for a lot of other people, they don't feel that way. So you must ensure that transparency is the hallmark of this process if we must build trust. So to MTN, whether it's Airtel, Glo, or other service providers, well, the work has just begun. You must build trust and be transparent.
Guys, another thing, I'm trying to process what I'm about to say so it doesn't come out wrong. And this calls to question the quality of people we elect as officials. One thing that power does to you when somebody is elected as president, governor, member of the assembly, any of these very powerful positions, the mistake sometimes we make is that because they are in the powerful position, they are very intelligent. I'm trying to use a word so that I don't abuse somebody's intelligence. But it confers on people credibility, authority. And so you make some kinds of assumption about who they are, which may not be entirely correct. So with the greatest sense of respect, that's why I was very careful so that I don't sound like I'm insulting anyone. The reason I said that is, guys, I don't know whether I've been hearing sound bites of persons talking about this national insecurity. And the remarks from some people in government is very shocking to me when people will say things like, people are trying to make the country ungovernable for the president, people should let the president work, all kinds of things being said about, the level of insecurity. And these are the people, guys, in authority. So if you, who has the levels of power is saying that, what do you want me to say? Exactly what do you want the ordinary citizens to do? So you are sure that there are persons who are hell-bent on making the country ungovernable so that they will have it as a political point to score to take out the government, whether at the federal or at the state level. So you are aware they are there, and these people are perpetrating this evil. And all you can do on TV is to come and complain. Exactly who are you complaining to? What exactly are you doing? Do you understand the power and the responsibility upon your shoulder? So if you are complaining, they are doing this so that the government will fail, they are doing this. So what do you want the Nigerians to do? That is why you are in power. You wield power and make the state governable. Because yes, there are people that want to make the state ungovernable. Guys, I think I'm sick, exhausted, tired that every election cycle, whether it's 4 years or 8 years after, politicians come on TV and they are talking about how people make the place insecure to score political points. Please, we don't want to hear. Just solve the problem. It's as simple as that.
Perhaps we should put it in proper context, Jeffrey. If I'm right, if I'm correct, you're reacting to the comments made by the governor of Edo State.
There are several people.
Yesterday.
Even the Senate president had even said at the NRC building
that once the elections are over, insecurity will be a thing of the past.
The president said to people from Plateau, the elders from Plateau, he said, and the president is a very intelligent man, don't make mistakes about it. He said, when those elders met him and those governors met him, and said, some of these people are doing these things so that he's not going to campaign. But he's going to campaign nonetheless. My question is, it means we know who is causing problems for us, and we're using it to play politics. So from the president to the Senate president, to the governor, to whoever, I'm saying if you're in power, use your power. Nigerians are dying. Nigerians are being kidnapped. The monies we hear that people have used from the MPS to pay ransom, Orire people are still there. There are several other peoples like that. They don't kidnap them because they are going with their convoy, their children are going in convoys, their wives are going with convoy, their relatives are perhaps going with convoy, even at the local government level. So it's the ordinary, regular Nigerian who is at the mercy of the level of insecurity. Maybe I'll add begging to it, to please do your job. We don't want to hear anybody complaining. I think it's personally upsetting to me as an individual, as a citizen, and maybe as a journalist, to hear people in authority complaining about knowing that this is done for this, and yet you're not using the levers of power to solve the problem.
Well, it's clear. The Constitution is also clear about the roles of government to ensure that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. And they always say that if the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. So if you're not fulfilling your purpose, then clearly what you're doing is abuse. It's clear. It's simple. We can talk about what's not being done right. We can talk about what is being done right. But I think right now, the issues are clear. And we want to say that we'll support every government that is sticking to this purpose, which is security and welfare. But if you're sticking to not fulfilling this purpose, sorry, you're on your own. We'll take a moment now, and when we return, we'll show you how the front pages are reporting the big stories. Stay with us. Well, New Telegraph is where we're starting off from, and it leads with the state of security, something that is being done, or at least a call being made from the reps, as they've summoned service chiefs, Ribadu, Oyedele, others, ask Tinubu to flush out bandits, secure schools, and others, urge Defense Minister to deploy more security to Northwest. IGP deploys DIGs to respective zones, says operatives recovered 957 arms and ammunitions in 1 month. DSS intercepts conversation, uncovers plan to abduct school children in Edo, arrest one suspect. It's spread across, these stories are spread across 4 pages in the New Telegraph today, but I'll just zero in on the update or the account being given by the IGP, saying that operatives recovered 957 arms, ammunition in 1 month. And you just wonder, for a country that you can't carry arms, right? It's not like America where you can get guns and be licensed. Nigeria doesn't have such provisions. So it always just worries me how it is easy to have guns, ammunitions, just like that. Why? How? Clearly there is a leakage, because if it's only security operatives that are allowed to carry arms, how is it getting into the hands of criminals? Where are they collecting license? Are they getting license? Are they getting it the right way? Clearly they're not. So where is this leakage coming from? So as much as it's great to hear about the mop-up, fantastic work being done, how are they getting this guns, this ammunitions? And lest we forget, the case of Mene Ogidi in Delta State. You recall the young man who was killed in the open by a security policeman. Where is that case right now? Who sent the gun that they say he went to pick up? Why was he killed? Who is at the heart of this? Because this is how we then have these ammunitions going around and ending up in the wrong hands. This is a case that must not be buried. ASP Nuhu Usman, who shot Mene Ogidi, you may recall that story in April. This is one of many of the incidents that we then call, arms or illegal arms proliferation. This is what leads to it. So we must not sweep that under the carpet. I understand that the judicial process has begun, but the point is we're not forgetting about this case. That is the front page of the New Telegraph this morning, focusing on insecurity and what is being done. We expect to see the response from the service chiefs, Rubadu, Oyedele, and the rest. But I must say, guys, this is going to be a true test of the powers of the National Assembly. Will the service chiefs appear? Will they answer those questions? We'll wait to see.
And that differs from the position of the Senate, during that hearing when there were calls for a probe of the defense allocation, which was not seconded by any lawmaker on the floor of the Senate. And of course, we heard the Senate leaders speak in reaction to that about 24 hours later, saying it would be unpatriotic to initiate any probe and insensitive, giving, the warlike situation Nigeria in and the work that the armed forces are putting in to defend Nigeria's territorial integrity. That's without quoting him copiously now. And so if this is coming through from the House of Representatives, it'll be interesting to see. It would, in fact, be a test of the legislative independence of perhaps, if you like, this one arm of the National Assembly. And if they're able to go through with it, if this is not political hot air, quoting Jeffrey, if this is not just a one-off, if they would see it through, well, is it unpatriotic to call for a probe of the security allocation, especially amid the fight against insurgency that has seen, very little result against what Nigeria is up against? It will be interesting to know what your answers are to that very important question. But let's get to the next paper this morning. And the Vanguard makes an interesting read this morning. Let's take a look at the Vanguard. Nigeria moving in right direction. That's ascribed to the federal government. F unveils Tinubu's scorecard. Defense reforms highlights economic gains. 1 million student loan beneficiaries. Tax reforms, anti-graft successes, says it's prepared to be judged by evidence. That's the big story on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Of course, the Minister of Finance also issued a statement in the last couple of hours acknowledging the IMF's report on Nigeria's macroeconomic successes and the gains of the reforms of the administration. But are you seeing the gains of the administration in those critical areas? There have also been reports in the last couple of hours about the increasing price of food, how much Nigerians are spending on food, on petrol and energy costs, and all of that. So are they trickling down to the micro level? Well, the answers are not far-fetched this morning. There are also other stories on the front page of the Vanguard. If you see right beside the nameplate, after rescue of 416 captives in Borno, 11 more kidnapped women regain freedom. Of course, at least there's something to cheer. That's it from the front page of the Vanguard newspaper.
When it comes to the argument as whether the government is performing or not, two things can be true at the same time. There are certain things this government has done that is commendable in the macroeconomic end. In fact, I think it was 2 days ago, I looked at the dashboard of the CBN. You could see that the foreign reserve has gone up. I think it has crossed the $50 billion mark, which is the gross foreign reserve. So that's a good thing because it helps with, our import licenses, being able to sort out certain obligations and all of that. And then the issue of currency stability, although the exchange rate is super high by any standard, but it is stable, it is predictable, and that is why we have a lot of the hot money coming in. So if you look at our import, capital inflows, you see that we did about 10 billion or so capital importation, but the FDI is abysmal in that entire range. So I could go on and on in terms of the big dashboards. They've tapered inflation by, I think, about 10% when it was rebased. So those are the, big ones. But the micro is also true. Life is tougher now than before President Tinubu came into power. That is the truth. Because you were buying eggs. I look at the numbers. You're buying eggs. I have what I call the egg standard. You're buying eggs less than 50 naira, about 50 naira before President Tinubu came in, or shortly before he came in. And then now you're buying eggs for 250, 300 naira. You are buying fuel for less than 200 because it was there was subsidy. Now it's about 1,003. So life cannot be easier. Whether the excuse, and I let me just go on what I'm saying. Electricity is more expensive. Now, why is everything expensive? Because of the neoliberal policy of the government in removing subsidy from everywhere there was subsidy, literally from PMS, from part electricity, and managed floating of the currency. So all of this has a knock-on effect on the everyday life transportation. So life is tougher now under President Tinubu than it was because of this policy. And he acknowledges this. So when I see some of his lieutenants come to defend that life is better, and I don't also, it's funny to me how we try to vilify the fact that there is almost like a crime subsidizing anything. There's no crime subsidizing anything. It is whether or not you can sustain that subsidy. So what I would expect government to say most of the time, look, we can choose to subsidize, but this is a consequence of subsidy. We may not be able to afford it. For God's sake, there are so many countries around the world that subsidize a lot of things for their people, and they are still surviving, perhaps because they have the capacity to do so. So let's not demonizing subsidy. I know neoliberal capitalists, even economies are divided on issues around subsidy or not. So life is tougher. So the government has to look for a way, because the government was not prepared for the shocks that the consequential impact of what they did. It was close to the right decision that was made at that time, but the consequential impact is what they've not been able to handle. So two things can be true at the same time. The macroeconomic dashboard looks good, but the pain on the people and their hardship is worse than it was before. So you can choose to debate that.
You know what I found recently, and it was yesterday actually, and I really hope that it's not the case. So I just went to a gas station to buy gas. Apparently, a lot of wholesalers.
Gas.
Is there?
Not American gas.
Not American.
Okay.
No, we don't use gas in Nigeria. We use petrol. We call it petrol. Or we'll go the extent of gasoline, but it's petrol here. But gas, cooking gas.
Yeah.
LPG.
Thank you very much. That you put in your cylinder, just to be clear. And I was surprised that the price per kilogram was 1,700. Now, other people have been buying it for 2,000 plus, 2,400, so maybe even more than that, 2,600. So I'm really hoping that when the wholesalers who came to buy there go to sell to the end users, it will reflect at least what they bought it for. So max, you sell it for maybe 1,800 or 1,900, depending on how you want to mark up
the margins.
Exactly, the margins, and not 2,500, 2,400. So I'm really hoping that's not what's happening with the gas situation. Yes, it's not what it used to be. We used to buy way less than 1,000 naira before, and even then, a lot of people were still complaining. Talk more of now that is more than 1,000 or more than 2,000. So I'm really hoping. Let us know where you're buying cooking gas from, and how much you're buying cooking gas right now. It's not where it should be, but I'm hoping that we're all fair to each other in terms of doing business.
You know, and amid fairness, Kadi, we just have to reflect another part of the conversation for areas far-flung from central business districts where, you know, you can buy at the wholesale price. When they get to their communities, it just may be more expensive.
That's why I added 200, 300 per kilogram.
Yeah.
Depending on
That's
what they spend on transportation, it could be way more than that.
Yeah, I understand what you say. You know, the location matters in margin. So, in fact, there was a day, the last time I went to buy gas for the home, I went so on a day they were not open. I didn't know they were not open. So, but I saw the price. Look, I think they didn't have. I saw the price about 18,000 for 12.5 kg. 18, no, not 18, 16 something. So the next day when they had, I went back, it was 17, almost 18,000, just in 24 hours. That's how things are. And I think we will help to, maybe we'll do a dashboard of what the government is touting as their gains, and also show them the reality of the consequence of that gain as well. Because two things happen. It's either government takes the hit, what they call fiscal pressure, in doing what they have to do, or they take off fiscal pressure and you and I as consumers take the hit. So we must look for a way to find a balance so that government survives, we survive. But right now, government is surviving. That's why the state governors are having a lot of money, even though some of them are doing absolutely nothing with that money. Some are trying, and we are the ones suffering. So it's one way or the other. Let's go to this Nigeria. Reps to service chiefs end insecurity or resign. IGP orders nationwide crackdown on unregistered vehicles. Some of these things, we've heard it over and over and over. It's like a broken record. But we understand there's going to be a hearing where all of the gentlemen in our military, who we applaud and commend them for what they are doing so far, but they can do more if they have all the support they need. I will just leave it at that. But I think it's time for these kinds of, you know, decisions to come through where we're clear that, okay, if you cannot do the job, excuse yourself from the job, because right now we need results. We can't continue to cope because it's about life and death. And just besides the nameplates, we have INEC recognizes Abdurrahman Ayanwu as PDP NWC leaders on the portal. So that there was a case that went, I think just Gumon's case, the Ibadan High Court that went to appeal courts. And it was more looked like, I think, an academic exercise. But both of them are arguing as to the interpretation of the appellate court. The appellate court actually held to the fact that, let's say, accepting without conceding that your arguments that you brought to this appeal court is true. But whatever we want to do here has already been decided by the Supreme Court. And I don't want to go to the technicalities, a bit technical, but by and large, both sides are claiming victory, but INEC has recognized Abdurrahman. That is the Wike-backed PDP. What's the fate of the PDP? We're going to look at it maybe later on, subsequently on one of our shows. But for now, guys, I'm just tired of this juvenile politics in 2026, where almost after 30 years, political parties are still fighting over who leads them. I think it's just childish to me. We should outgrow this. After this election, let's outgrow this absolute nonsense with the greatest respect. But we'll take a break now. When we come back, we will be looking at the first conversation. You know, you heard about the derailment of the train and the people that lost their lives. The managing director is going to be joining us in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. So let's get right into that conversation. And the
Managing Director of the Nigeria Railway Corporation, Dr. Kayode Okpeifa, joins us now this morning. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the morning brief.
Yeah, good morning.
Well, it's really sad that we've lost 3 people in that Warri-Itakpe train derailment incident. And we've seen that, you know, the corporation has begun investigations into that incident. We saw you yesterday talking about, you know, cranes and orders are being made. But more importantly, getting to the root of this one too many derailments that we're seeing. What is the outcome of preliminary findings from your investigation on what may be responsible for this round of derailment?
Good morning. Thank you very much. And let me start by expressing my personal and the corporate condolence on the loss of 5 lives and several injuries to our passengers. And at the same time, use this opportunity to once again thank the various first responders and the sterling performances, especially the Delta State government for quickly deploying all necessary agencies to the site, the Kogi State government for their support as well, the NEMA, Inspector General of Police and the Delta State Police Command, the Civil Defense, Federal Road Safety Corps, and the ICA Northeast and ICA South local government chairmen and their resources. I also want to commend the effort of Senator Ede and that of the former Secretary to Government who assisted in ensuring that the first responders are mobilized. They were not on the train, but they supported us. Now, on the issue of the incidents, like you described, it is one accident too many and not wanted. And what we are doing right now, we have concluded the passenger rescue, and we have commenced the issue of investigation. Yesterday, measurements were taken by our team, NRC, and that of the Nigerian Safety Investigation Pro. And it is our findings should, in the next few days, be ready. At least it will be preliminary to have an idea based on what people are saying. Then a more detailed report will come from the NSIB, who also got to site yesterday morning. They concluded their preliminary measurements sometimes in the afternoon, and it is after that the recovery process comes. Or what are the preliminary findings? What we could say is that 482 people were on board, 442 passengers, 40 crew, third-party people, and security, and that of all the rolling stocks, 4 of the coaches were affected. The 2 engines were not affected. The one of the coaches were not affected. Sorry, 2 of the coaches were not affected, and that there were derailment and capsizing. That's why the accident is a very serious one, because ordinarily you should just have a derailment standing, and that will give you no or less injury. We have some coaches that capsized, and we also have damages to the track as a result of the track of the equipment that moved. So the cranes are on ground, and recovery commenced yesterday. On the preliminary findings, to be specific, to be speculative, because NSIB is involved, we have to keep talking with them. So maybe by tomorrow afternoon, we may start having some ideas of what could be preliminary. So I want to appeal that this is one that involves death of Nigerians, and including an infant. So we have to be very cautious. But we will definitely make a statement tomorrow after clarification from Nigeria Safety Investigation Bureau, which is a new organization by government to handle all transport sector related incidences and accidents.
Now, before the ship sails on this particular aspect of the conversation, we were talking about it yesterday, hours after the incident occurred, and the usual suspects would have been faulty tracks. And if we recall the NSIB report on the Asham train derailment last year, those were the suspects, lack of training, unserviceable switches, poor sweepers. Are you ruling out the possibility that this could be part of the problem, or is there human error involved in this?
Yeah, thank you very much. All that you have mentioned are always suspects when you have a train incidents, including human error. So we will be looking at all. The NSIB too will be looking at all. Like I said, it's always when you have a high level. This is a high level investigation. It's going to be a little bit higher level than that of Asham, because we have casual fatalities. So I think all are suspects. All are suspects in this case. I saw the trajectory positioning of the equipment, the rolling stock, and it looks close to what you see in Asham. And so I'm not an expert in investigation activities, but the experts are there, and want to believe they are better positioned to quickly. This one we have to come up faster than we did with Asham, because we have fatalities here. Right now, I want to focus on getting all those in the hospitals safely out of the hospital, and make sure that people who have loved ones deceased have access to them, so that they can do what is the needful with next.
It's a really sad one, because for a while now, people have said, let's try the trains, whether you're doing Lagos to Ibadan or for that corridor. In fact, I remember when it was closed, there was a lot of clamor that let's have Warri-Itakpe back. We need this. It's very important. And seeing this happening right now, after we'd had another incident, which of course didn't go awry much earlier, it's really sad to see. And I mean, there are at least 5 reasons why a train will derail. It's either, from the tracks, whether they're faulty, they're being vandalized, or it's the train itself. Perhaps the train is old, not well serviced. It could be the wheels or what have you, or the human behind the wheels, right? Either the human oversped, they didn't watch out for signs and all of that. There's a 4th one, which could be overloading, and I don't know if that's even a thing here, but we've seen other climes where there's people inside the coach and on top of the coach, right? Or the 5th one, which is weather conditions. This one is external. And I wonder which one it's pointing to likely for you.
Early. I wouldn't want to go into anything now, even if I have some thinking. It's better. They just took measurements yesterday, and we took visuals, we took pictures, we did how do I call it? We do discussions with people on board. We hear some people say they feel some shaking or whatever. So let us wait. But one thing I know is that train was not overloaded. Personally, from Sunday after Salah, we've been having issues with surge. Sometimes over 100, 200 people will come to these train stations and will not be able to pick them because there is not enough space to pick everybody. Now that corridor is one corridor that we have been paying attention to in recent time in terms of patronage. And the patronage is huge. People come as far as Abuja to Itakpe to take that train, and they go as far as Bayelsa, Rivers State, Delta State, Edo State as destination to and fro. So, but I can tell you, I have videos I can send to you. Videos sent to me as early as that day. We get video pictures of what do you call it, of our coaches on a daily basis with time and they stand. I can tell you that is not there. So all the other things you mentioned could be, and we will not leave anyone out. We will investigate all. And I also must also at this point says that while we thought we are getting out of this equipment, engine, track, and the rest, yes, that track is 40 years old, was rehabilitated 10 years ago, and then it was meant for cargo, but repurposed for passenger and cargo. And just recently, we have a PPP interest in moving every cargo along that corridor. They just completed their own assessment too. So we also look at their own report to see if they see anything. And this is a multinational that is interested in running cargo, moving minerals and whatever. It is also that section of a track that was used to move the pipes that were used for the AKK pipeline project construction. So it is very key. It links Kogi State through Edo State to Delta State and the entire South. And it is, for now, apart from the Abuja-Kaduna, the only link, the other link that is serving the people from Abuja and the Federal Capital Territory. So we will do everything possible. I think this is one incident too many. I thought we were almost getting out of this, but this is a very, very serious one. And God's willing, we'll get out of it.
As we need to wind up, Mr. Piper, my only question will be, how alarmed is the NRC about this incident? Because after air travel, I want to believe that rail travel should be the safest. And given the realities we're dealing with in terms of road and kidnapping and national insecurity, this should be the natural alternative to persons who can't afford air tickets to fly to their destination, either for business, leisure, or whatever it is that they are going for. So how alarmed is the NRC and the federal government about this? Because that would impact on the measures being taken.
Jeffrey, let me tell you, we are not just alarmed. We are worried that after putting in so much, should this happen? After putting in so many standard operating procedures, we training them on why standards and consistency is critical. After doing a serious repair works on the tracks, after working so hard to make sure we have more coaches. In fact, we are planning by the end of this week. We have just completed arrangement to add 2 more coaches. That is additional 170 passengers onto that corridor. And all this happens. And you know what it's going to cost to the families who lost loved ones, then to the corporation, and then to the entire mobility sector. That the people in that corridor, the people who use these trains, they don't want to go on the road. They don't want to go on the road. And even when we have incidences and we have to tell them, we will get them, they will just tell us. I watched some of the clips from your presentation yesterday, where they were saying they just don't have an alternative. So it's painful, but we get over it.
As we begin to wind down now, it can't be missed that you acknowledge the possibility that those usual suspects cannot be ruled out as you continue your investigation. So as a follow-up, I'd like to ask if you have operational challenges with some of these things required to ensure that train operations run smoothly. Operational challenges being funding allocation to the NRC? Is the NRC self-sufficient based on the revenue that is being returned? Help us understand if there are any operational challenges relating to funding or any other aspect.
Thank you very much. Let me say with all humility that personally, I don't see challenges in anything I get involved in. I see opportunity to make a difference, and I see opportunity to solve problems. So if there is anything in terms of philosophy that we have been putting into the new management of the corporation, is for our staff, our personnel, to start looking beyond challenges and problems to face solutions and opportunities to make a difference. With regards to state of funding and whatever, believe me, worldwide, train operations is very expensive, capital intensive, low return on investment in terms of direct, but a huge potential for improved GDP, standard of living, amenities, and a good rate of return to many people who use it. In our own case, we are working and we are still within the African level of issues. And for us, this issue, I don't believe, has to do with funding or whatever. You have mentioned the critical 5 or so. They are regulated. The trains are well maintained. The equipments are well maintained. In this case, the track is okay, I can say. But when you have an accident, you don't rule out any suspect. So I don't want us to start being speculative, and then, but definitely channels and your other very supportive colleagues will be briefed. There is ongoing a Transect study of that track to see if it is a track issue. There is also what do you call it? People's comments on what they feel while on the train. The drivers, the monitors, and everything have been taken. This one is going to be a serious investigation because we thought we have crossed the goal. Now, going to people's experience, believe me, on the Lagos-Ibadan, it's a different thing entirely. Everything is moving as expected. People are going on the train for entertainment, tourism, and experiences. And we are just planning and thinking how we can extend this to other corridors. But this happened. So we want to assure our regular users, yes, accidents do occur. We don't want it to. And that our trains remains the safest options of the land transport. And we will continue to do what we need to do. I just want to pray, and I just want to assure that we will do everything to make sure those who are using our trains, their experience continue to be better. We are seeing a surge in adoption, and we don't want people to think otherwise, especially for those who are using it for their daily lives, their businesses, and for their experiences.
Well, quickly, I just want to refer to the statement that was earlier released by the Federal Ministry of Transportation, Permanent Secretary. And in that statement, it looked like there was a major gaffe that said other notable individuals on board the train included the senator representing Delta Central Senatorial District, Senator Ede Dafinoni, and former Delta State Secretary, or SSG now, Honorable Patrick Uka, among others. And that sort of sent shockwaves. What exactly happened? How did that come out? I know it's been retracted, but what happened with information management that we had that?
The statement never said they were on board. But in the, there was a particular paragraph that a sentence was placed below a statement, and that created an impression that, which is normal, that sentence arose from the one before it. But the truth of the matter is that it has been corrected, retracted, and it was wrongly released initially. It was wrongly released. It was under editing at the time it was released. They were not on board. They were actual two individuals who played the most significant individual role. They were the one that assisted with the linking to the Delta state government and major first responder in Delta. Part of our protocol says contact people of net worth that could get you what you want within a phone call. And we got across to Senator Dafinone, who immediately contacted the state governor. We got across to Honorable Patrick, who immediately contacted the Commissioner for Health and some security perspective. So they were not on the train. They were not even at the venue. But what they did with their phone, with their contact, was fantastic, was unprecedented. We have seen similar things done to us by people in Kogi, the secretary to the government of Kogi, the local government chairman, where we have Itakpe stations, and the DSS. So in this case, you see, we regret it. We have retracted it, and we apologize to these two individuals for whatever it might have caused them. And we want to plead that with media houses, sometimes when they see this kind of thing, they always get a clarification. I didn't know until I got a call from one of them, and immediately we did all we could do as I yesterday. I want to apologize to them once again, and we'll make another statement. We made one yesterday, and I will keep doing these statements continuously until we're able to reach out to all those who have. We've also gone on the social media where these things have been discussed to contribute to it that it never happened. Senator Dafinone remains one of the biggest legislative supporters of Nigeria. He writes to us on issues on this corridor. He was even the one who took this matter to the National Assembly in the first place, sometimes I think November 2nd or 4th or so, 2025. So he remains one of our most prized individuals. And for Honorable Patrick, believe me, this man has been helping with the security of the track. He's the one who is giving us all the links we need to get to Delta, and he has done wonderfully well. We want to say we regret whatever that embarrassment they might have received. We want to appeal to the whole Antwerp spread that we regret it.
So as we await the report of the investigation, you did say that the Warri-Itakpe route is about 40 years old. It was last maintained 10 years ago, I believe, if I heard you correctly. But we do see...
Sorry, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
But you said it's 40 years old?
It was constructed 40 years ago. That's not too old. That's not too old.
Okay.
It was rehabilitated 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
So that brought it back to life. And those are the two statements I said. I never said it was last maintained. Just, you will recall that there was a time we shut it down for 60 days to correct some issues, broken rails and the rest. I just used those years of to put in context what we are talking about.
I recall that to ask when last an audit was carried out on the Abuja, Kaduna and the Warri-Itakpe route, because it seems as if the derailments that we often experience are on these routes.
Okay, let me say this. There is a planned track safety audit for 2026. The moment I resume in January 2025, based on my experience from working in Lagos State and Federal Capital Territory for a transport sector, the first thing that you want to have documented is the route and equipment safety audit. So we planned one for 2026, and I believe we are still on track to get that done. The next thing you start doing immediately is to do the transect study. That is, you do like a walkthrough through the track. We have done for both tracks. And for this one, it might interest you to know that at some time we have to run double equipment to move from one point to the other, so that we make sure that there is no vandalization. These tracks, the two tracks you mentioned, are not in the outskirts of the town. They are very, very far away, and they are right inside bushes. This one traverses rocky environment and bush, and it's not an area where people readily reside. especially towards the Itakpe and Jakarta side. So the road safety audit, definitely for every mobility sector, for example, for rail, should be done every 5 years. So we are proposed to do one this year.
Well, the location of the tracks shouldn't rule out, in the light of the circumstances, a track safety audit, or borrowing your words. And, this is time to commiserate again with the families of those 5. Initially, what we had was 4.
Don't let us, I just want to, let me appeal that we stop, we try to stay away from this speculation. So we have equipment, you have track, you have human, you have weather, you have mechanical issue. There could be so many, and in train accidents and incidences, most oftentimes not one thing will be responsible. It's always multiple of things from 2. One will be primary, the others will be secondary.
All right.
So we want to.
Well, we were about to wrap up, Dr. Okpeifa, but we get your point that, all possibilities cannot be ruled out. And it's exactly the reason that, I also brought in that particular aspect of the conversation as well. Dr. Kayode Okpeifa is the Managing Director, Nigeria Railway Corporation. Thank you for coming on the program to explain these things. And we, again, commiserate with the families of those who have lost loved ones in the Warri-Itakpe rail incident. And we're on to the next. This time?
Well, it's politics, sort of politics and relationship gone sour. Well, we can tell you now that the 2027 presidential candidate of the NDC, the Nigeria Democratic Congress, Mr. Peter Obi, has threatened to file a 5 billion naira lawsuit against his former ally and now chieftain of the ADC, the African Democratic Congress, Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo. Why? For alleged defamation. In a pre-action letter to Mr. Okonkwo, which you see on your screen, 4 pages, signed by lawyer Alex Ejesime, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Obi accused the ADC chieftain of making false and defamatory statements against him when he appeared as a guest on our sister program, Sunrise Daily, earlier. And lots of things were said, but part of what Mr. Okonkwo said in that interview is he alleged that Mr. Obi and Southeast Caucus of the NDC demanded 10 million naira from House of Representatives aspirants in the party to secure tickets for them. And, this went on and on until we saw, this threat and the 5 billion naira lawsuit threatened against Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo. But Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo has been speaking. In fact, he has dropped what some have described as receipts, and really this is not looking good. It's getting ugly. And this is Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo's post. He's been posting, by the way, on X. And he said when he questioned the aspirant in question, Obonike Ohayegbu, to prove that Mr. Peter Obi was responsible for demanding the 10 million naira from him and other House of Representative aspirants and 20 million naira from Senate aspirants, the allegations he made. He said that the aspirant sent him statement, spoke on phone, said a lot of things. In fact, Mr. Okonkwo went on to put up what is believed to be a receipt of a 10 million naira paid to the NDC.
Well, we'll jump to the next conversation, but this is politics. That's the first thing. Second part is the letter from the solicitors, the legal representatives of Peter Obi, are saying he should apologize and withdraw and maybe get an undertaking. So perhaps if he's doubling down with his own receipt to say, I know what I said, I mean what I said, because of the allegations he made against Mr. Peter Obi, they will meet in court. Their fate will be decided by the judge. It's of no... it's their battle, this is the political season. So I'm sure that if he chooses not to apologize, just like he said, he knows what he's saying, they will meet in court. And the court will make a final decision where it's going to make presentation of the things who said and who did not say. And then we'll just come here and read the outcome of the judge's decision.
Well, you said the apology is asked, and next, the 5 billion naira is also asked. So you apologize.
Yeah, and then you pay.
And pay to our client.
Which is more like it's a pre-action notice. That's what it looks like. It's a pre-action notice because they are already telling, for writing through the lawyers, they're already saying, there's a next line of action if you choose not to do what we demand.
Not to apologize and pay.
I don't know how that will work.
I doubt if he's,
Well,
if he's able to pay.
Mr. Okonkwo has put out a receipt, so
Yeah.
we expect the lawyers of Mr. Obi to also react to this evidence that has been provided to either debunk it or provide an explanation around this. So you're right, Jeffrey, to say that they will be in court.
Let them go and face themselves in court.
Precisely.
So
this looks like a civil matter between both parties.
Everybody will bring their own receipts as to the allegations you made. What interesting time. Let's get to the next conversation. And our guest, Segun Ajayi Kadri, is the DG, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your show.
So just as context, so that the audience will follow us before I throw in my question, the Senate is urging the federal government to enforce ban on textile imports. And from the last data, I've had conversation with the people within the textile industry. They told me that in the glory days of the textile industry, we had about maybe 200 of them in the factories. I don't know what it's called, or plants this time across the country. But as we speak, or as at the last time I had a conversation with them, they're left with maybe about 20, which is more like 10% of what was. So you can see how much drop that has happened. So this is to the intent that they are trying to curb massive foreign dependence and stimulate local content production. That is the narrative, that is the intent of urging the federal government to enforce this ban. So two questions in one. What's your response to this statement by the Senate, or the argument by the Senate that there should be an import ban on textile industry? And do we have the capacity to satisfy local production to the point of having net exporter of the same textile material?
Okay, thank you for raising those issues, because you have actually hit the kernel of the matter. The Senate is, or the National Assembly is to be commended for coming to the realization that something needed to be done about this very important sector. And the figures you have given are correct. It should be concerning to every Nigerian that once you spend as much as $6 billion every year to import textile and garments into your country, you are actually importing unemployment and exporting jobs. So it is concerning, and what the National Assembly has said should be one of those things that could turn around the situation and improve domestic consumption. So to that extent, and there are examples around the world that if you ban importation or in a way close your economy to some measures, to some level of importation, you are able to stimulate domestic production. But the second part of your question has brought the matter to the table. Do we have capacity? So I think in order to answer all of this, we need to go back to how did we get here? Where did the rain start to beat us? Did we suffer this situation because of importation alone? What is responsible for the drastic reduction to 10% of the numbers? I mean, this is particularly graphic for me because my earliest days in MAN, I was executive secretary in Kaduna and I covered 7 states and Abuja. We had more than 10 textile industries, 6 of them operating in Kaduna where I had my office. We have 0 number now in terms of fully operational textile industry. So I can feel it. And I think some of the issues were demonstrated, but it is not the massive importation of textile materials and garments that led to the collapse of this industry that potentially could be and was the highest employer of labor after government. So, but that's not the only reason. There are several other reasons. And so if you want to impose a ban, there has to be a lot of issues that are taken into consideration. You have to do it simultaneously with several other things, de-risking investment in the sector and ensuring domestic capacity so that people do not suffer artificial scarcity, and that we do not have people taking advantage of the situation just as they have done when government tried to do this in the past. And this is not the first time we are doing it. So that would be my response to the fact that, yes, if you ban importation, you are likely to stimulate domestic production. But is that all that it takes? And did you have enough consultations with the stakeholders to be able to take this monumental decision? Because it's going to impact on the trade agreements that we have, either within the ECOWAS sub-region, under the AFCFTA, in WTO, and so many other multilateral and bilateral agreements that Nigeria has entered into. So it's a holistic thing that you need to take into consideration before you ultimately ban. There has to be stakeholders' engagement, and so on and so forth.
So this is particularly targeted at China. We import most of our textile from China, right? So I'm not sure how AFTA will come into place, since AFTA is mainly African. We, in fact, do very little trade with ourselves in Africa, right? But that's aside. So this is a China thing. A lot of the imports come from China. And as you've said, it's not because of the imports that we now have moribund industries. Perhaps because we progressively had industries that went under, that people had to turn to China. But I want you to give us a number, right? If looking at your dashboard, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, how many textile plants are in operation in Nigeria today? I had seen some figures earlier on, but you have at least the live numbers. How many of them?
Okay, so let me first of all give a caveat, because I know where you are going. I think we have between 20 to 24 industries, and people who are not conversant with how industries work will be wondering why I'm not able to give specific figures. You see, in manufacturing, you have what we call resurrection. That's industries go into coma when the weather is bad, and then when there's a stimulating factor, maybe that government incentives or measures or government policy that will promote their revival, they come alive. So we have about 2024, only about 4 or 5 of them are barely operating. And in fact, in most cases, they produce to order. It is because of several factors that I don't know if this program will allow us to say, that has left them in that kind of a situation. Most of them, all of them literally, that are, all of those that are existing, produce at less than 30% of installed capacity, whereas others are literally closed. So I don't know what to make of the number after I have given this scenario.
You said you know where I'm going. And to be fair, I'm not planning anything here. I just want to have the numbers, then know just how well the numbers can carry the demand in that sense. So I recall maybe late 90s or thereabouts, there was this development levy. So 10% import duty from textiles being imported would then be sort of given to manufacturers in Nigeria. So with this proposal to ban the importation, one, I think it's clear, you and I know that we can't carry the burden of the demand with what we have on ground. So how do you suggest we go about this so we're able to balance, whether you call it the demand from the burgeoning fashion industry in Nigeria, which is beautiful to see, right? And also protecting our local industries. How do you suggest we go about this?
Yes. Again, you hit the nail on the head. And I want to appeal to the National Assembly. Don't let us go through this route again. The failure of policy in Nigeria has been principally because there's no stakeholders engagement. You can't shave my head in my absence. And there are certain statements that we make or certain resolutions that we pass, certain policies that we bring on board, and even laws that we enact that do not reflect substantially what is happening on ground. And that is the reason why well-intentioned resolutions, policies, and laws fail to achieve their objective. There is need for stakeholders' engagement. There is need to call all the existing textile industries to ask them when, how, and where can you scale? Because we have an idea of the national demand. We know the reasons why we are operating below 30% of installed capacity. Are you ready and willing? Do you have the political will to do all that it takes to deliver? Because Nigeria can deliver the textile and garment requirement for Nigeria. There's no doubt about that. But it doesn't happen by the passage of resolutions alone. It needs to be actively supported by measures that we have consistently recommended and that has not been implemented. For instance, are we going to be able to enforce the patronage of made in Nigeria textile in government? When you look at the National Assembly, how many of them, when they were passing this resolution, were wearing made in Nigeria garments or textile materials? And if you expand it, how many of us are driving cars that are assembled in Nigeria? So even if you are able to legislate the ban on importation of textile materials, and garments has to go with it, are you going to be able to diligently implement Executive Order 003 and Nigerian First? Are you going to be able to enforce it right from the presidency to the National Assembly, to the military segment, to the uniformed segment, and to even schools? Are we able to enforce a Nigeria Day, for instance, where everyone will be obliged to wear what is made in Nigeria? Are we truly ready for a ban on the importation of textiles and garments? Is government going to do its bit? Are we going to be able to reject any item that has to do with textile or garments, uniforms, and all of it that is in the budget and say, show us the connection to local production? Are we going to be able to do that? Are we going to be able to muster what it takes to effectively implement the 30% plus IAT in terms of importation from third countries? Are we going to be able to enforce the sovereignty, the security of our borders, that we will not have the ban coming to North? So there are quite a number of conversations that needs to take place for us to be able to be serious about enforcing the ban on importation. It is not just by fiat. Are we going to be able to enforce it? Do we have what it takes? Do we have what it takes? Categorical, yes. Because we have our textile mills. We have the textile industry. Government can be intentional to promote this very vital sector that can deliver jobs, that can deliver advancement. Those obsolete equipments and machines that we have, are we ready to fund them? Are we going to make them to borrow at 30%, 35% interest when those countries that are smuggling and exporting to us are borrowing at less than 3 to 5%? Are we going to be able to fund latest technology? Are we going to ensure backward linkage with production of cotton to the factory floors? So what are the obligations? Why did the previous incentives, the measures that were taken by government, why did they fail? Have we gone beyond those challenges that led to the failure? I mean, so those are the issues that we need to take on board, that before you say you have an effective ban.
And so before I decided to ask this question, I had to look at my costume and look at my colleague's costume as well. And, you know, I couldn't run away from the fact that I've been fingered in your commentary as well. But another key part that you mentioned is, you know, backward integration for cotton. What would it require for Nigeria to return to the historical peak of the required cotton production to ensure that the industry is jump-started, aside the political will, which is also critical?
Okay, so the problem with the textile industry is almost a general problem that we have. Many people forget that we once had a period in Nigeria where the manufacturing sector was contributing more than 30% to GDP. But now we are struggling to make it 10%. So there are factors that needed to be put in place, to be resolved, for us to be able to have a virile textile industry. And it has to be a whole value chain development. We've had interventions by the CBN. We've also, in fact, as it is now, you can't even source forex from the official window to import textiles. So there are those measures that have been taken. But the general issue of intentionally promoting domestic production is what we need to address. We need to ensure, for instance, in co-creating an atmosphere that supports cotton, textile, and garment value chain. It has to be a deliberate one. And the Nigeria industrial policy that was launched earlier in the year provides a veritable avenue for ensuring interministerial coordination to make sure that it happens. The Ministry of Agri, the Ministry of Industry, the CBN, the Ministry of Finance. There has to be an agreement, interministerial agreement, that intentionally focuses on this, because by far, the textile industry offers one of the best opportunities for us to ensure value chain, export competitiveness, and rapid scale. And this is clear to us from the efforts that have been made to revive it. But once you have, and it's been said that there are about 200 containers, 40-foot containers of textile that enters this country almost every day. So how do you deal with that? So in terms of having the political will, there are structural defects that we need to cure. And this can only be done when there is an intentional collaboration and partnership between government and those who operate in the sector. We shouldn't be far apart trying to achieve the same objective. We need to be able to work together and to get to the bottom of the matter. Otherwise, we are just going to create an atmosphere that is good to hear, but difficult to feel.
So, Mr. Kabri, let's do some housekeeping, but correct me if I'm wrong and give me the exact data in case I called the wrong one. But I think there was some bailout that was released for the CTG. That's the cotton, textile, and garment, about 100 billion. I think it was under the Muhammadu Buhari administration. First, confirm whether it was actually released and what was done with that fund, because this question will arise because we're talking about import substitution as a viable option for us to be able to exercise our authority in terms of sovereignty to be able to ban and one, satisfy local production and then be net exporter. That is the aspiration, whether it's the energy sector, it's the textile sector, that's what everybody's aspiration is. So talk to us about that 100 billion naira bailout for CTG and what happened to it and why, maybe it didn't do what it was supposed to do.
But honestly, that ended up in a nightmare for us because it was a good feeling. We were excited about that initiative. But like many other things that went awry in the previous administration, affected that facility. Because the disbursement, we continued to say, didn't follow the trend that we expected, and that it didn't deliver much. I'm sure, I'm also aware that there is a lot of investigation that is going into the disbursement and how it didn't achieve its objective. It was actually expected to be heavy on cotton, that segment, And then we saw a situation where arbitrarily we were having those funds going into companies that were not doing the business. We also saw a situation where it was not directly linked to the value chain, where it will go to the mills and then go into production of textile and then transiting to garments. So that structural linkage didn't exist, and the process was not transparent. So, and that is what I'm saying, that we didn't co-create an atmosphere that will make it watertight, so to say, for us to be able to achieve success. It is the intentionality of it that is actually the problem.
So, Mr. Kadri, without trying to cut into your thoughts, so are you saying that the money didn't get to who it's supposed to get to, and that is the reason for that is because the people who disburse were not transparent in the process? I want to know where to place the blame.
Yeah, it's part of the story. It's part of the story. And then you know that you give me money and there's no power.
Hello? If you can help us unmute your device. We heard there is no power. That was the last word I heard from you. Mr. Kadri?
Okay, so when there is no power, and when I still need to borrow some more to augment what I've received, there's still massive importation, and all other factors still affect me. But then we didn't even have transparency in the process. It's designed to fail, or it's designed to perform suboptimally. And that is the matter. And we said it at that time, we needed to be actively involved in the implementation process. We need to move away from government designing policy without adequate consultations and then implementing it without aligned private sector co-implementation. Because we know those who are manufacturers. If you tell me any textile industry now, I will tell you whether they are operating or not. Even if I can't tell you immediately, you need to give me just an hour to connect, because I have branches all over the country. And I'll be able to tell you because we play in the field. You can't leave me out of this conversation in terms of policy formulation and implementation and expect to succeed, because I know where the battle is coming from.
Mr. Kadri, reports say that about 60 billion of the sum had been disbursed. Are you saying that those who got that sum are not textile manufacturers?
Some of them are, but many of them are not.
So why?
And what I'm saying is that those who got, okay, yes.
Why are the results, not visible from those who got the funds?
No, those who got the funds were able to retool in some instances. But like I said, you have retooled. Incidentally, it came just before we had the 250% increase in the electricity tariff. It came when we also, as soon after, we had a well-intentioned, and I fully support it, the exchange rate reform, which affected how much you got and what you are able to do with it. So I'm saying that looking at it in isolation does not tell the whole story. We need to be intentional, and we need to ensure that all other measures that needed to be taken are taken to support that process.
All right.
You see, even if we implement the ban today, that is not the only thing you need to do to achieve success. And we should not overly praise that process. Yes, it is a good to have, but what then do you do? You must have the political will, and it must cross between the legislative arm of government and the executive arm of government.
So as we begin to wind down, so let's understand where the failure came. So if some people got, let's say, 60 billion, and then there were not enough transparency for the ones that got, so are you blaming it on maybe interest rates, exchange rates, business environment, or I'm trying to look at all the lists that are possible in things like this. Some will even say some persons diverted the money. That's why the monies were not, the federal government stopped it as well.
It is not possible for a manufacturer to get money to improve his business and take it elsewhere. Because when you manufacture, you want to scale, you want to dominate the market, you want to export, you want to make profit. So, and those members that we have that are into manufacturing, we are daily engaging with them and struggling to see that they are able to retool, scale, and export. So it is those untoward activities that have limited or has made it impossible for those initiatives to achieve effectively.
Ajayi Kadri, I almost called you Kadri Hamzat for a moment. My apologies. We all want the same thing. Being able to satisfy local production, being net exporter, create jobs, being the hub of manufacturing, because no matter what we say, even the oil industry that is a big receipt for FX earnings, great as it sounds, but if we don't do manufacturing that has a lot of added value for that export, we'll still be gaining in one end and losing the other end. So with manufacturing, we can get earnings, we can get jobs, we can drive the economy. So we all want the same thing. So we'll keep engaging you and every policymaker to see how this can turn around so that we go from the 20 or 24 back to the 200 as soon as it's possible. Mr. Shegu Ajayi Kadri, DG Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll take a break. And when we come back after this break, we'll get to the next leg of the conversation. And of course, we're also going to talk sports. The World Cup starts tomorrow. I'm sure some people are not aware, but a lot are. Stay with us.
Well, let's talk health. Well, it's 2026, and Ebola is a major concern. DRC, Uganda battling that strain, which is very stubborn. And the case fatality ratio, depending on which area, is quite concerning. Well, Nigeria's president, Bola Tinubu, has now set up an Ebola task force and released 10 billion naira emergency fund. And, well, it's been described as a presidential task force on Ebola virus disease preparedness and emerging public health threats. So, this means a lot of things. The Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, of course, is chairing this. There is going to be partnership with the states, with other agencies of government responsible for travel, health, and the rest. It's sort of a holistic well, breakdown. If you look at it so far, well, the details aren't quite clear yet in terms of who gets what and all of that. But at least this is a start, it would seem. But how well are we handling this? What do we expect? You may think it's in DRC, but you never know. Flights come into the country every day. So I want to push this further to ensure that we get full value. We're joined on the program by Dr. Richard Okoye, Chairman, Save a Life Group, joins us virtually. You're welcome to the program, Dr. Okoye.
Yeah, good morning, Kayode, and everyone. My pleasure being with you today.
Well, it's good to have you. Whenever we have situations like this, we naturally turn to people like you who have a good understanding of these things. We've dealt with Ebola before. We dealt with COVID about 8 years later in 2020 or thereabouts. But we're back now, almost like a cycle. But what do you make of this task force which has been created? 10 billion naira released immediately for NCDC and emergency response, enhanced screening, they say temperature checks, high-risk airlines to watch out for, Uganda Air, Rwanda Air, Air Tanzania, and the rest, reference and isolation centers activated in Lagos and Abuja airports first. Other states that have airports must also be alert, and those who are within the border corridors. What do you make of this plan first?
As a matter of fact, that is a very, very commendable effort by the federal government, and also a step in the positive direction, contrary to what we used to have in this country where everything seems to be ad hoc. You know, and I think this preparedness is a very positive one. However, we just have to also take a lead from our previous experience. Because in as much as this money is meant to be in position to go for surveillance and the rest, it is very, very important we look at holistically the preparedness of the country. Taking our leave, George Santayana, in his book in 1905, he made a very profound statement in that Life of Reason. He said, those who cannot remember the past are bound to repeat it. If we look at our trajectory when we have to deal with our response, it has always been ad hoc. And as soon as that particular challenge is over, everybody return as if it never happened. In 2014, we had a case of the popular July 20, that Patrick Sawyer that collapsed at the international airport. And that started our response then. Later, we got to spend almost about $13 million by the federal government report. And we did a lot of stuff, following up, washing our hands, hygiene, all the necessary things hospital need to do, as well as our burial management. But soon after that, everyone returned as if nothing happened. The infrastructure required that has been made. I got an experience recently. A lady came in from US and got symptoms suspicious of COVID. And the commissioner, who happened to be my friend, called me and said, please, do I have any place where we could be able to test for COVID? I called some of my friends, people I know that coordinated the COVID affair as of that time, and none gave any positive outcome on that. But one made a very important statement we need to consider now. He said to me that we have dismantled all the infrastructures of COVID. But recall the federal government also made mention of spending $3.6 billion in the fight for COVID. But soon after COVID is over, everybody returned. Now, we have a completely different situation in the country. While I look at it, completely different situation, and while this very task force should be able to look deeply, because if we have a scenario like COVID, we may be ending in a healthcare tsunami. 2014, we have a lot of doctors in Nigeria ready, at least volunteering and be available. 2020, we have them, but following COVID, most European countries opened their gate for them. Come in, no visa on arrival. As a matter of fact, we're going to give you residency. And we happen to start that journey of Japa syndrome with letter title date. 2022, we had complete collapse, reported by also Vanguard, November 2022, all our primary health centers collapsed. Now I can tell you, Kayode, as it stands today, you may not find a single doctor in any of our local communities. It may be anyone you find, probably God will call that individual. And a lot of them are out, and we are now being about to be faced with another challenge. So that's why, to me, at this very short point in time, it's been able to focus the task force to know areas of very important concern that need to be addressed.
Yeah, so Dr. Okoye, if we get you correctly, you're saying that the Ebola task force is good, perhaps the release of funds is good, but our preparedness in terms of infrastructure is what is lacking.
Absolutely.
So should this 10 billion naira have been directed to strengthening healthcare infrastructure? And we might ask also what is happening to the funds released to the renovation of healthcare, primary healthcare systems across the country. If from where you stand, from your own assessment, our primary healthcare system are not really built to tackle any pandemic response should it happen?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Bukola. My pleasure meeting you. It's important for us to admit this issue at this particular point in time. Let's consider NCDC, Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention, established in 2011. Okay, actually signed into law in November 2018. But one critical thing is important here. As of, by reason of their statistics and their website, they have about 500 workers, staff with them, and also remember when they established, they have one center in Abuja for reference laboratory, also the administrative block there. Then it goes and the geopolitical zone, one in all of them. 2011, we have a population of 164 million to 171 million people. Now we have 70 million, which is over the population of even South Africa, that is 3.1. So it's almost that we have created additional nation, but the capacity is still within the same. That's why we have to, at this particular point in time, also consider human capacity building as the fundamental infrastructure, particularly when it has to do with healthcare. That's why the Japa syndrome is something that if nothing is done and it continues, which we don't have the economic capacity based on our status vis-a-vis the other European and American status, we may not be able to win. So that's why we have to think a little out of box. But if you look at areas to be able to be concerned, taking a leave, why we have a challenge in Ebola in 2014, COVID, yes, we lost 3,155 to COVID in 2020, but there are positives. What did we actually do in 2014 that later contained this? It's supposed to be in public domain in the NCDC website. That these are the things that we have as a challenge. These are the things we do. Even if there are certain medical terminology that will limit the public, the medical professionals who will still be exposed, should have a section in that very website that should be able to say, these are the challenges we have, why we lost this number, and these are the things we were able to put in place. Those statistics are not the kind of thing that should be trashed or say we have dismantled all the infrastructures. And there is a room also for this area task force to come to a point of considering dissemination or decentralization of the activity of the center, considering the capacity or the population explosion right there in Nigeria, that each state should also be involved, because the closer you are to the people, the easier for you to have surveillance, the monitoring. And crazily, unfortunately, Ebola has a long incubation period of 2 to 21 days, which is a real burden when it has to do with the issue of surveillance. So, and the closer the people that have a knowledge of this, the cheaper it's also gonna be for you to be in position to do those contact tracing and the rest of them. Absolutely. And at this particular point in time, knowing that Ebola is an RNA virus, but it's of negative sense. Negative sense in the sense that it undergoes a lot fast mutation. That's why we have not been able to have vaccine for Ebola, despite the fact that this month maybe 50 years of being found in Sudan in that 1976 in June, and then later moved to the Democratic Republic of Congo.
And we can talk about the inequalities or seeming inequalities in the health sector, right? But we must also protect ourselves, and I am glad that you have painted the picture as it is. So when the task force is looking at the dashboard and wondering how do we go about this, they can always refer to this conversation and at least have a sense. Because if we've dismantled all of the response that we had for COVID, we're obviously building from the scratch. But we have to thank you so much, Dr. Richard Okoye, for at least keeping watch of the citadel in that sense. Dr. Richard Okoye is the chairman, Civil Life Group. Thank you for your time on the program. All right, so these are very important conversations. You may think that Ebola is far away, but all it takes is just one person, one flight, someone crossing the border, and we'll continue to ensure that we pay attention to those issues. But from health, let us talk sports. Jeffrey Bukola, I don't know who wants to take this. I'm going to tell you that.
The person that should take it is here, Cecilia Morogwe. She's already here with us. So let's talk sports. I love football. By the way, have I done my subscription? Let me.
You better do it. It's starting tomorrow.
Cecilia, welcome to the program.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So I was trying to remind
what's going on? Did you guys got an email like blue? What's really blue?
Sometimes you got the email.
Sometimes we roll like that. So this is our background. So once in a while we do that to remind ourselves.
Yes, we're
that's our color. Since we don't have, since we're not going to the World Cup now, so
Green,
let's manage what we have.
Remember, let's do it again.
Yeah. Don't break my heart. So Cecilia is our sports anchor and correspondent. Cecilia, a lot is happening as far as the World Cup is concerned. I was telling Bukola, we need to be aware that this is happening.
Jeffrey.
No, I'm not going there. Don't worry. I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
So talk to us. What is going on as far as the preparations for this World Cup is concerned? Because I've been reading a lot, but let me allow you, who is the expert, to talk about it.
Because the political angle and the controversy is bigger than the tournament itself, right? That's what it's looking like. But you know, no matter what's actually going on, we're still going to have the biggest World Cup ever. 48 teams from 32. That's a whole lot. And they're going to play it across how many cities, from Mexico to Canada, to USA. Yes, for instance, as we have 8 venues where games will be played. You go to Canada and you go to Mexico. And then for those who've got with single entry into the USA, just an advice for them. You rather please go to Canada first, cover the games, and then Mexico first. Because once you get into the US, you go out, you can't come in. Ooh. So that's the I visa that they were issuing, and just an aside on that. So most media houses will have to send multiple journalists. So you have some based in Canada, some in Mexico, and maybe others in the US. So that's aside. But then it's all about politics, visa deniers, and everything. Just last night you have. The White House head of task force, for the World Cup, Andrew Giuliani, talking about the reason why the Somali referee, was denied the visa simply because, he's among those suspected. There's a terrorist gang that is in Somalia that we all know. So he's one of those suspected to be a member of that. I mean, where Atan was named 2025 our best referee, by CAF.
He's housing terrorist organization that he is linked.
He's suspected, in Somalia, to be linked to,
wow.
Suspected to be a member of the terrorist organization in Somalia. Somalia is one of those countries that have been banned by Donald Trump, in terms of visa ban, just like those countries are selected. So when you're having players or referees from that or administrative staff, usually it doesn't affect players. Because for Iran case, we just had 15 management and of course backroom staff, that were denying a visa, but all the players of course got theirs. So for this case, that's the reason it was denied visa. That's the excuse they came up with, just last night here. So we're looking at a World Cup whereby you're thinking what's going to happen next is so unpredictable. Before now, we're not going to bother ourselves talking about the other aspect of it, politics or anything. What we are concerned about most times at the World Cup is always making, the records that will be broken. Will Lionel Messi at 38 be able to win another World Cup for Argentina? I mean, you'll be crowned the greatest of all time. There will be no argument. I mean, you just have to drop all your, the keyboard warriors and everything. You have to drop that and focus on, what Messi is able to do. Ronaldo at 41. Portugal, for instance, you have this particular generation, I can call them, the best they've ever had, when it comes to talent. Can Ronaldo at 41 lead them to a World Cup? So those are the angles we are looking at it from. So we're not going to dwell on the political aspect of it. But then one thing, I think we're not just going to be talking about the fact that Super Eagles are not going, at least you have Nigerians, that will be there. Rema, for instance, will be performing at the World Cup. Rema will be performing. And then who else? Of course, the the World Cup theme song, with having... What's his name? Burna Boy. Partnering with Shakira for
and
that.
Davido had also done
Davido, 2022, World Cup. So, I mean, we've got that. So, you've got Davido, you've got Rema. So, I said, sorry, you've got Burna Boy, you've got Rema. These are, at least you see, maybe Nigeria flag flying based on these entertainers that have been entertaining people at the World Cup. Of course, you always see them. I was speaking to some of my friends in Houston, Texas. It was like the community over there. You have so many Nigerians in Houston, Texas. Texas is going to be hosting, I think, about 6 games. And so they're expecting something big. And then now, Nigeria is not going to be part of it. So, there was just these expectations coming.
My question
but outside that,
yes. What is what would be our best chance as Africa? I'm rooting for all African teams.
Okay, all African teams. Okay.
We're 10 of us.
10 of them.
Yeah,
yes.
So
okay.
How far do you think we can go? I think the highest we've gone is semi-final.
Yeah, that's Morocco. That was the last World Cup in Qatar.
Do you think we can get to semi-final?
It's going to be hard because you're looking at 32 and then you're looking at 48. And you're looking at their cross centers. And right now, at the moment, US is actually hot. I mean, we land at 16 centers. We're going to be having middle, or in the middle of each half of the games, you're going to be having cooling breaks for players because of the heat. So I don't know how the Moroccans can cope because, the Europe is similar to that of, their weather is similar to that of Europe. So that's the difference. South Africans too, this is winter in South Africa. I don't know how they can cope with that. And most of them play in their country. But maybe Senegal, I guess. I think Senegal. I don't know why I'm thinking Senegal. Not because of what happened in AFCON, but because they're a complete team. I don't tip South Africa. Maybe South Africa, yes, may get out of the group. Maybe round of 32. Yeah, this is not bad, but I know some South Africans will come for me. But then you look at the squad, you look at the players, you look at the coaching crew. Yes, they have Hugo Bruce. He's a big time coach, but his technical abilities. Is it enough for him to propel his players to get to a quarterfinal at the World Cup that has 48 teams? Yes, we have countries like Curaçao and countries like Jordan, Uzbekistan, who was qualified for the first time. But that's not just enough. Yeah. So Algeria is also another team you can look at. But I don't see Algeria moving past the round of 32. But I think for me, Morocco and Senegal will still be the team I will pick when it comes to this World Cup. Maybe Côte d'Ivoire, maybe Côte d'Ivoire could be quarterfinal.
Seeing the match against France.
You're going to use that to judge?
I'm just asking.
Come on. When people started saying that, I was like, excuse me, we're talking about France here.
Proper, I get it.
See what Olise did, when Mbappe was floundering and he couldn't score the game they played against Northern Ireland. What happened? He came up, got a hat-trick.
And I get that point. I was just wondering why you were tipping.
Do we start from the 4 firepower in France?
I get the point, Cecilia. France is a contender for the cup, not even
cup,
exactly.
So that's the thing.
And I'm sure Ghana is looking at you like, you didn't mention us now. We're also in this
line. Forget Ghana. It's not deliberate. But I've looked at Ghana. I mean, who sacked a coach that qualified them for a World Cup and decided to bring in another one?
Okay.
I just feel immediately they did that. I feel it may not work out well for Ghana at the World Cup, really.
But that's not.
I think the round of 32 might just be their best bet, really.
Yeah,
and that's why I don't see them going past
pardon me. That's not even my question.
Okay.
That's, by the way, the real question is this Gianni Infantino issue. People are saying he's not standing his ground.
Okay.
Why would a referee be denied entry?
Okay.
We've had multiple issues.
Yeah.
So they're wondering that. Well, America calls it soccer anyway, so isn't it just messing up the sport? So do you think that he's not standing his ground well against?
Is it Gianni Infantino? It's not him. The United States is a sovereign state, right? FIFA would not interfere in your policy. He won't. The only thing FIFA can do is to aid you to get your visa. He will give you the necessary requirements for you to get what you need.
But Sisi, is that satisfactory? We've had months and months to prepare for this World Cup. Iran is having, we understand Iran.
Yes.
But even Senegal,
before now,
we hear they're having challenges also. We're told to remove their shoes.
Before now, right? Before this whole issue started, Somalia, for instance, we know they're one of those countries on the ban list. Maybe what FIFA could have done in that aspect, countries that have issues, right? what do you do? He doesn't have to officiate in the US. He could officiate in Mexico or in Canada. I feel that's what he could have done.
I think he's the only African referee, right?
No. There are a lot of African referees, but it's the first time you're having a referee from Somalia that could have officiated at the World Cup. And him is a 2025
is he the only African referee at the
best
World
player.
Cup?
No. Okay. We have a lot of them. We have lots. I think there are so many, about 16 on. There are lots of African referees at the World Cup. But he's the first from Somalia. It could have been a first for him to officiate. I mean, 2025 is the best referee. CAF named him the best referee, in 2025. So it shows that he's got the pedigree. I feel what FIFA could have done, having those, what do you call it, these glitches or ahead, just ensure that the games you're going to give him, whatever games you're giving him, let it just be in Canada and in Mexico, so to avoid these whole issues.
Because it's an embarrassment to the continent.
Yeah, and then you're looking at the Iranian team, for instance. Iran decided to camp in Mexico. I mean, because most of them were denied visa.
I think
into the USA.
said they will still find a way.
Yeah,
but some officials may not come, but the players
will find a way. But in terms of that Somalia, they've given their press statements already. They said I mean, it's suspected to be a member of terrorist group in
I don't even know whether this was even a good idea to take this World Cup to the US, but we're already
it's very untidy.
It's very tacky.
Let's enjoy the game. Come on, guys. There are a lot of things to enjoy.
We have Portugal to play
you're having the football, for instance, that will deal with tech, AI, and everything. Where you have,
I'm also worried about.
At least I know the teams that Sisi could be supporting, remotely.
I'm also worried
African
about
teams. So it's either Morocco or Senegal. So should be watching out for those teams.
Yeah, watch out for those two teams, actually. Maybe we can put Cote d'Ivoire in the mix, but...
Well, I don't know all the time. Yeah. At the end, I feel that there are too many rules, too much technology.
Too many rules, right?
Too much rules, too much technology. It's killing the excitement of the game. I love some of them because the players usually cover their mouth when they are confronting their opponent, right? Now, when you do that, too much
get a red card.
Yeah.
And then when you're making substitution, you have to do it on time. 10 seconds. If you're not done, that's the thing.
The seconds, the regulation of the goal also.
Let them cut down the rules and too much technology so we can enjoy the game. But I think that's it on the program. Thank you for your time and company. Cecilia Omarugbe, thank you for coming on the program. Sunrise Daily is up next at the top of the hour. Bye-bye. I'm Jeffrey Zonga.
Remember to buy Nigeria in terms of textile. I'm Bukola Koka. See you tomorrow.
And support the Super Eagles, whether they're going or not. We're playing against Portugal today, so wish them the very best. I'm Kyle Okikili. Goodbye.